First question I like to ask everyone I interview during this time is just a simple, how are you doing? How are you managing to stay inspired and stay motivated in the face of the pandemic? I mean, I'm reading in Europe that a lot of cities are closing their clubs again and stuff like that. And so how is that going for you as an artist?
Um, well, the whole pandemic, actually, even before the pandemic, I already knew something is wrong or was going to happen. I don't know. I just felt very, very, very strange. And I felt like I didn't have any energy to do anything. And I felt like I needed a break. And I also felt like I don't want to DJ. I really felt like this is, or had never felt like this before, actually. And then I was looking forward to my tour because it was in the US and it would have been my first Cassy's Playhouse, and also going to the Caribbean and visiting my cousins. So I was like, I'm really looking forward to doing the gigs. But then the whole thing happened, and it kind of like reaffirmed how I felt in my holiday or in my break for in January just before. And I just felt really strange, and I just knew I needed to grab my mom and my son and just go back to Austria because we were living in Ibiza, and and I knew whatever I felt before was right, and I just have to like kind of like even pretend like the world is never gonna be the same, which the world is never going to be the same, but even like go and say, okay, this is now a phase. My life is going to change forever. This is over. Whatever I've done so far was okay. And something new has to happen now. And I just took time off, basically. And I was just there for my mom and my son, which I could never do before. So I did not listen to any house or techno, like hardly any music. If I was listening to classical music, and this probably for a year. Yeah.
So you're saying you've only been really listening to classical music for about a year? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So I was literally like, I could not listen to one single house or techno record. I was like,
Mm.
no. And I was like, oh my God, this is really strange, but I'm just not feeling it. It was
Um,
really, really, really odd. Yeah.
um, you mentioned a very strong connection to your intuition in that sense. Has your intuition and trusting your gut been an essential part of your career as an artist throughout the entire time?
Maybe more like a career as a DJ or artist, because as like the business side, my intuition was usually not so good. But then it was right for me as an artist. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
My intuition is good for me as a person and as an artist. I know that I'm being led in the right way to learn the best lessons for my life. I see the person that I hopefully truly am or truly am becoming is more important than the artist, and then the artist's life, and then my career. So I always find my personal path is more relevant to my life than my career path. And then obviously this can go hand in hand, and and it's interesting how how I just took it seriously that I needed this break, and now a year and a half or 2 years on, or almost 2 years on, I feel like, yeah, it was really good that I did it. It was really good that I went through my motions. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to quite a few artists throughout the pandemic as a whole, and the ones that I've spoken to on the more recent side that we've been in it for over a year and a half, it nobody said that it was like a good thing that it happened, but a lot of artists did appreciate the ability to slow down and take a breath and like really reevaluate themselves. Like, I mean, because nobody I was actually interviewing another artist yesterday, and he just brought up that nobody in like December of 2019 was thinking that anything like this could ever happen, ever. Nobody had this idea. It's like, oh yeah, the whole world will shut down. You know, that's just something that's coming up. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe people had the intuition like yourself, but it wasn't as crystallized in its form, you know. And so
Yes,
for
obviously wasn't as
yeah,
crystallized for me either, but yes, yeah, yeah. It was, I guess, for all of us, and we just don't understand, maybe not fully understand yet. It was a blessing in disguise because I think everyone was running on empty almost. It was just getting, everything was getting so hectic and crazy and more intense and more never stopping. Yeah.
yeah, I
I think
mean,
no one would say that this was a, of course, it's a really strange, tragic thing, and we're all going through it, and it's super hard for many of us. And also, we're losing so many famous musicians and artists we admire and family members, and it's an extremely testing time. But you know what, when you're going through testing times, you just know that there is no escaping them, and that you have to take it for what it's worth and make the best of it.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, one thing that I found interesting that you said is how when you're taking time off, you know, you weren't gigging clearly because nobody was, but you also weren't listening to house and techno. And so I'm wondering, like, has your listening habits always kind of reflected, been like what's going on in your life even before you were a DJ? Is that kind of a correlation that's always existed?
Hmm. I think it's like, once you become a professional DJ,
Mm-hmm.
your listening habits change, and you have to, like, because you go from being extremely passionate about listening to every single record, you can also go to, oh my God, I have piles of promos and things I have to listen to, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So listening can become work as well. And listening is also, you go through tracks and you listen for like 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds, different bits, and because like, can I use this? Can I not use this? Can I use this? Cannot use this? Because you have to listen to so much music. So there's a different form of listening
Mm-hmm.
as a DJ that you have to probably, it's an acquired skill, I guess, as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. It like must be almost 10 years ago now. I took a series of courses at Berklee College of Music in Boston, and one of the ones they made you had a lot of choice over the classes that you took, but one that they wanted everybody to do was called critical listening, to learn how to really like listen to music and hear it on, just listen to it from a more educated and intelligent like viewpoint, I guess. Because it, if you the to engage in this business of music and to not hear all its parts and hear everything that's going on, you're doing yourself a disservice in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I guess it's also like what you're supposed to be doing with the music, or how you want to grow with the music, or is the music your business, or is it something, because obviously if you're a journalist, or if you're someone that, or an A&R, there's so many different ways that music has to be listened to in order to be sold or be written about properly, etc. So I guess, yeah, it's something that, like, obviously your attitude to music changes if you are, you know if you're a professional around music.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's what I
Yeah.
wanted to say again.
Yeah. um what was your first musical experience when you were younger that you kind of led you on to this path of being an artist?
um I don't know if this has led me on to be an artist. I don't really know if that was really. It also this time made me question so many things.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess looking back again now after the pandemic, what did the past mean in actual fact for my life? And I guess it changes, like the older you get, you look at things differently, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. The one thing I know is that I listen to music, and I don't care what it is and who it's by, or it either catches me or it doesn't catch me.
Mm-hmm.
And and I listened. I think the first music I listened to was classical music, because it was like Sleeping Beauty and like ballet music and
Mm-hmm.
Swan Lake and these things. So and that I found immediately extremely attractive. I mean, that's just like amazing music for children. And obviously, if you go to the ballet and watch it, or if you can watch an opera for children and stuff, which in Austria, children do, because this is I mean, Vienna is the cradle of classical music.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Absolutely.
or was the capital of music of the world for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess you grow up with it differently. It doesn't matter what your background is, or who your parents are. Like, everyone has the chance to love and listen to music the way uh, you know I did. Because even in school, you go and like watch an opera or something, or you join the choir, and then you might even be part of an opera, or there's a lot of really musical or musically interested people in Austria, because it's
Mm-hmm.
part of the culture and of traditions. And so this is why music, like, I guess a bit even like I mean, I went to a Catholic school, like religion, like habits. I don't know. Not that Austria is an extremely religious country, but there's some things that are just part of your education, unless your parents are super alternative, obviously, then they will try not have you be part of this. But I guess it's very continental European, very classic, very exposed to a lot of culture.
Mm-hmm. And so if you started listening to classical music, what was the natural progression that got you to listening to more house and techno and things like that?
Well, I listen to a lot of music, and because I guess I learned that music is important and so cool. And, I think the passion that you live with, like listening to music in a ballet and Tchaikovsky, teaches you how fulfilling it is, because it's extremely, I mean, classical music is extremely enlightening.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it gives you the door to know how to enjoy music, or why you enjoy it, or what it means to you. And I always had like a radio. I had like a Ladybird turntable, and later on I had a radio, like a tape radio, where I could tape things from the radio, or then I had a little stereo thing where I could tape the vinyl onto the tape, and I could also tape radio again. And so my life was just like basically around watching my favorite cool films, and recording my favorite cool music, and buying records. And that was then later on obviously like pop music,
Mm-hmm.
anything I could get my hands on, or anything that my horizon could pick up.
So how many records would you say you have in your collection now total?
I really don't know. I don't know. I have a problem with counting people, even like some people look at a mass, some people look at a mass of people and go like, that's about 1,000 people. And I'm like, oh, really? I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea. I think it's like, it's a lot, but it's not. I would say it's not as much as like super prolific DJs
Mm-hmm.
have. And also I lost a lot of records and some boxes. And I'm not a collector. Yeah. I'm someone who plays records, and there's many records I bought 2 or 3 times because I lost them,
Mm-hmm.
or they were like so broken.
Yeah.
And I really don't know, thousands, obviously, but I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how many thousand.
And do you still spin primarily on vinyl today, or do you use CDJs and stuff?
No, I also my main collection, I only had a few vinyl boxes or cases on me because I had to put them in storage because my son was born and I was moving around the world so much. I wasn't living in one place. And
Mm-hmm.
we didn't know where we're going to be living, and I never knew where I was going to be living. So they were in storage for 10 years. So
Mm.
I then had to like give up the idea because I could the storage I had to then take. I couldn't go and pick new records up whenever I wanted to, and it was also too difficult to do because it's somewhere in the Austrian countryside. So I kept the vinyl gigs to like a minimum,
Mm-hmm.
and because I was missing a lot of records that I wanted to play, and I just like had to, I just had to make the best with like playing with CDJs. And I also thought it was also like a lot easier when I had my son because I was traveling with him a lot and alone as well. So it was easy for me to be, not have vinyl on top of my son and a buggy, etc. So
Yeah.
it was a practical solution as
Mm-hmm.
well. But then obviously I started missing it more and more. And especially now in the pandemic, as I got all my records back, I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, I have to, as soon as everything starts going full throttle again, I will probably just like focus on just playing vinyl. I mean, obviously, I will also play some CDJs, but I will focus on playing vinyl again. And this is why I'm also doing this tour, because we said, okay, this is the time to do it now.
So the upcoming tour is going to be all vinyl sets.
Yes,
Are you coming to Los Angeles by chance?
yes.
Ooh, very excited. Um, in doing research for the interview, we're already talking about DJing, and so I read that you started DJing at the age of 28. Is that correct?
26.
26. Okay. Um, that's obviously
Late.
there's no wrong time, but it can be later than a lot of people start. And so, kind of leading back to what we were saying about like your intuition, why did it feel right at the age of 26 after collecting vinyls and listening to music so long? What made that the right time to get your start as a DJ?
That's not how it was. I
Oh,
went
okay.
I went to drama school. I wasn't collecting records at all. I was never collected records.
Mm,
I only just bought music that I was listening to. So I always lost records. I always messed them up. Then I started buying CDs and tapes, and um, I don't know, I was never really precious with my records, unless they were just my favorite that I was listening to at the time.
mm-hmm.
And then obviously, yes, I do take care of them somehow, but many records are also not in their sleeves. And I'm a nightmare like to all record collectors. Like really, I'm not a prime example. Um, yeah, I was not collecting records. I went to drama school. I trained to be an actress. That I did in London. I every weekend I went to buy music. I mean, I think I didn't miss one weekend at Tower Records in
Mm-hmm.
London, or some smaller shops that maybe someone would tell me here and there, but I wasn't really in a scene. I was just more like, a drama student, and sometimes I would go to a really cool club or party, but I couldn't really do that so much because I didn't have anyone that wanted to do this with me in school. And I was alone at night. And back then in London, I don't know, it wasn't so easy to get back home. And I was just more shy and not really a party girl yet. And yeah, I was always listening to music, always buying music, and it was all different sorts of music. I was singing a lot. Had extra singing lessons with my singing teacher. That was for classical, though. Well, classical, like more, also like musical, what you do when you have to, when you study drama. But she was an opera singer, and she always said, yeah, I should study for opera. And I said, yeah, I would love to do that. So that was something I thought I might want to be doing after drama school, just like dedicate all my time to just singing lessons and to go and get admitted to, an opera course, or actually to a music school, and then later on do an opera course whenever my voice is ready. So that was the plan
Mm-hmm.
after drama school, my official plan. And then I moved back to Vienna because I felt also more happy there, and I didn't feel like I wanted to be an actress. Or I did a few plays, but I think I was like more, I just really liked the idea of singing an opera more, even though just yes, but not the actual practicality of it, because I could already see how the lifestyle of an opera singer and how hard it is, and how how careful you have to be with your voice, how neurotic you have to be, how hard, like, to even to get taken in a school. And I just knew, okay, after like this hard work of a drama school that I've been through, it was really tough.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I don't know if I can do this again now, just for my voice. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like doing singing lessons, helping out this opera singer, or this like very, very good teacher in Vienna. I started with her. It was very interesting. But at the same time, I started going out and partying and meeting some old friends. And I saw that the DJs I knew from before in Vienna, they were like quite famous. And I started getting into the party scene, like slowly. And I started hanging out with a techno DJ called Electric Indigo. And she, she still is, but back then she was one of the most important techno DJs.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely in Berlin, in Europe, and she was traveling everywhere. She was really good. She played amazing music, and she said to me, "Why? Like, you're always at the parties, you're always staring at the records. You're really interested in the music. You like standing in the DJ booth and watching, because I wasn't so much watching to see what tracks it were. It was like more like I was just fascinated. How does it work? But I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have thought myself that I should be trying this. I was like, nah, that's ridiculous. Why would I try and DJ? And then Electric Indigo, she convinced me. And she was like hanging out and playing a lot with Miss Kitten and Acid Maria, another German DJ. She still plays sometimes, I guess, but not so much anymore. And they were just really, really good and amazing. And I thought, wow, this is their passion. They're making money with this. They are actually paying rent with DJing, and they get to tour the world. And they are like very. I just thought they were very interesting young women, that were like out there, personalities, not like crazy out there, but like definitely completely different to the drama students I had just hung out with, and the people that started having jobs or finished university. And I thought, wow, this is an alternate lifestyle that I really enjoy. I enjoy how people just go after their passion and really do something that is a complete niche thing. Or back then it kind of seemed like a niche thing. Maybe it's not so niche anymore today. But I thought, wow, I wonder if I could do that too. But it was really hard to learn to mix well. And I played techno at first, and I mixed weird music because I didn't have a style. I didn't have records. I just needed to build a record collection, and I needed to build my own style, and I needed to build my skills, my mixing skills. And so I didn't go like, oh yes, I'm going to be a DJ now. I was like, I am not sure I'm going to be doing this, because if I do this for real, if I really do this, I have to be serious about this. Otherwise, what's the point? So I had to also prove to myself if I'm serious about it. And I could see how with the first 2 or 3 years, I got serious, and I really developed a sense for what I want to do. But it took a really long time to translate it into actual what people can listen to. And I really had to just be exposed as much as possible, and I had to play as much as possible. Moving to Berlin made that possible, like to go and play after hour here, party there, just play as much as possible in a bar, like, and play and play and play and play and play, and be thrown into situations that are scary and like crazy and really challenging, and obviously sound like an idiot for years, etc. And eventually I was so ambitious for myself, in myself, that I was like, okay, you have to do this really well, or you're not fucking doing this.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be a really good DJ, otherwise fuck it.
Yeah. I mean, you have to always do your best no matter what. You can't half-ass any of this. You mentioned that moving to Berlin was a big turning point in your career as a DJ, and you became a resident at Panorama Bar, correct? That was in like
Yes.
2003 around.
Yeah, I think 2003, I think it was 2004 when it opened, or did it open in 2005? No, probably 2004. 2003 was the year it was not, because it had closed in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
And then they needed to find a new place. It was the Oscar before, and then they had to find a new place.
I was gonna ask, what was Panorama Bar like when you were a resident, and how has it changed between then and now?
Oh, God. Oh my God. I mean, I just like, I cannot even believe that the time goes by so quickly. It's very crazy. It's like another lifetime. Well, it was it was the Fridays were label nights in Panorama Bar, and the techno floor downstairs wasn't open. And the Friday nights were the cool nights where everyone went, where the cool labels had their nights, and the Saturday where the residents were playing, were really not super interesting. It was more like, okay, we need to build a crowd, we need to build a club, we need to build what the club is about, I guess. It was people coming out. They were always great with the door, in the sense they didn't just let everyone in. It was not like about having the most people possible. It was more about like, experiment. How should we do this? I don't know how conscious they were of it, but probably yes. And they were always really professional. And I guess I was also always really professional there, because I was like, okay, no one is coming to the Saturday, Sunday, because everyone was like hang out on the Friday. And I thought, you know what? This is like the best opportunity I've ever had of my lifetime. Somewhere, a floor that is going to be my floor, like it feels like it's my floor, because I was there in different, like my floor. I don't mean my floor, but how I can develop a skill as a DJ, because you're playing in the same place a lot. which makes you have a very distinct relationship with this place, with the floor. You get to know it really well. You get to know the sound system really well. You start to develop a sense of what type of record sounds how. You get the sense of what does the sound like with 100 people, more or less. What does it sound like if there's only 20 people left on the floor, etc.? What does it sound like at the beginning of the night? What does it sound like after hundreds of people were sweating, etc., etc.? You start develop this extreme sense for how everything you do has an effect and how it has an effect. And that was fucking amazing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great to be there at the very beginning, where no one wanted to be there, where the freaks were dancing at 11 in the morning on Sunday, and you still had to make the best of it, you know. And I have to say, it was amazing. It was not cool. It was just really like a club in Berlin was, you know, where it's not cool. It's just like, you know, we're here, we listen to music, we're professional, it's a party. I don't know. That's what I always loved about Osgood or Berghain, that it was very individual people that would go and would want to be left alone partying and do their thing, you know, and listen to music. And it was about dancing, and it was about just being free, and not like no one cares what you looked like or who you were, if you're gay or not, or whatever, you know. And that vibe like was incredible. I have to say, it was really nice. And obviously it turned into this Sunday where like the party that started on a Saturday went longer on the Sunday, longer. And obviously then the Sunday to Monday night was the most important time to be playing. And it changed drastically. It turned from extremely well respected, everyone wants to be the club, play their club, to well respected, everyone wants to be their club, you know. And that was an amazing opportunity to have.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that whole story. I mean, I would have loved to have seen the club back in the day like that. I mean,
it was amazing. It was a dream.
One thing that I liked about what you said is how it wasn't like a cool club or like the cool thing to do. It was just the thing to do. People didn't go because they thought it was cool. People went because that's just all they wanted to do. It's not like the social media.
It was cool to be there, you know. It was cool to be there. You wanted to be there because it was cool. It was like you liked hanging out there. You like being you met everyone that you wanted to meet, you know. And it was it's so hard because obviously it's still cool to be there, and it's an obviously really cool club, but it was not like you know, you have to be really cool, otherwise you cannot be there, you know. Or like it was like it's better you're just yourself and you're there, you know. I just felt very organic.
You mentioned that you really liked being able to play in one place like a lot. That gave you all the opportunities to play at the different times, see what worked different times. And you ended up having residencies, not just in Berlin, but in Paris and Amsterdam, maybe some other cities. And I'm wondering, like, was that experience of having the residency in Berlin, is that similar to other cities? Do you get that same kind of impression of,
unfortunately, that was the horror of the whole thing, that like nothing was like playing at Panorama Bar, because
really?
You had 4 or 5 hours,
and
I could play there like once a month or maybe sometimes 2 times a month, which makes it, you know, the other residencies were like in the summer, you know, like DC10 was like in the summer, or Cocoon. but it wasn't as much. So you didn't have, and it wasn't your floor, you know, like where you're like, okay, I'm going onto my floor doing my thing, you know. It was something in Ibiza, obviously at Cocoon, it was like, obviously I had like, I prefer playing it on the main floor. And obviously you get used to DC10, you get used to them, you were there a lot, so you get used to it. And Rex was like once every 2 or 3 months. It was not as much, and the trial was also not as much, and it was so different because the clubs and the sound systems were different. And it was, I think you were Rex not so much, because that's such a club also, but obviously it's a completely different room, so it's again, it's a completely different thing. It was like these residencies were like amazing, like obviously amazing, but a completely different experience. So you cannot really compare it to, it was like more like, okay, well, I wish I could play everywhere more often to have the same feel that I had at Panorama Bar in the other places, or like at DC10, it would have been nice to play there for like 4 or 5 hours, but obviously DC10 had a completely different philosophy, and you were only allowed to play an hour and a half, and yeah, so different feeling.
So Berlin will always have that special place in your heart for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yes. Yeah.
One thing I read is that when you have a DJ gig, you like to get to the club like really late as possible, so you're not influenced by what the other DJ was playing. Is that something that you still like to do, to just like go into the club without expectations and just play your heart out?
Yeah, because at the beginning I was there early, and it was really sometimes throwing me and making me like more insecure about what I'm gonna do. And then it was like, no, just go at the end and catch the vibe and see what you can do then, and be less, less worried and less freaked out. But I usually get there like half an hour before or an hour before. It depends if I was traveling a lot, how tired I am, if I need a nap, what was going on, if I still need to prepare something. So a more practical decision around the time you arrive in the club. But yeah, I still get very nervous. I still really care, obviously, thank God.
I mean, there's definitely some people who have been doing it as long as you who don't care anymore. So it's good. It's good to know you care.
Well, I don't care about many things anymore, yes, but not this, you know, not this of like having to be there and like having the people react to what I'm playing and trying to like get the energy right and stuff. That's like extremely, that's my favorite part of the whole, like that's why I'm still doing it. If it wasn't for this, I would really not care. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, being in the crowd to feel that level of spontaneity in a set is always really special. I mean, rather than, I mean, the longer you're there, the longer it makes sense. The longer you're there, the longer you see what the other person is playing. It's like, oh, you start asking yourself, should I play this? Should I play that? You just show up, you get there, and it's all like purely energy, and that definitely translates really well to the crowd.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you have methods of kind of bringing that same spontaneity to your producing when you're making music? Is there like a similar kind of method for that?
Maybe used to, but not anymore, because like, I don't have a studio anymore. Like now I'm starting to work alone on my laptop. And I used to have a studio before I had, when I was still living in Berlin. And then I was like working together with people, or renting a place, or going into the studio with someone. And no, now when I make music, it's more like it's like project based. Like now, right now, I'm working or on some music, or also again together with someone, but the other person is in the US and I'm here. So we're like, we have a specific thing in mind that we want to be doing. So it's not like spontaneous. It's more like, okay, this is about this, or like really like with a certain outcome in mind.
When you produce, you usually produce on a schedule, or do you
Yeah, on a schedule, because
Mm.
also because I'm a mom, and it's really hard for me to find, like, I cannot just be in the studio 4 or 5 hours every day
Mhm.
working. There's other things I need to do here and there. I mean, now it's getting better because my son is in school,
Mhm.
but this is why it's easier for me to take 2, 3, 4 days. I go somewhere and work and do it, and I'm not interrupted, and then come back, That's just like an easier way for me to work. Yeah.
Um, I wanted to ask about your album Donna, which came out back in 2016, and in a lot of ways, it seems like it was a sum of all of your talents as an artist. You know, you're a producer, you're singing on a lot of the tracks, which you developed when you were younger as well, and the styles are such a wide range, which is something that really only somebody who's spent so much time DJing could really master. And I was just wondering, when you were making that album, what was it like to bring all those different elements of your creativity together? You know, the
It was like very strange because I wanted to, obviously, and I was pregnant when I had to finish it.
oh, mhm,
So, and then actually, no, finishing it, my son was already born. So it was like, that was very much part of it. And it was just, I wanted to do something that is not just house and techno, that is really more like an artist album where you can see what the music sounded like that inspired me, or what is my what are my influences, and like to make it personal, and and also not try and be something special. I don't know. I just thought I'd just try and make it as organic as possible, and that's what happened. And I remember there was one, I think, in the accelerator. It got really bad. It got like good reviews in most places, but in the accelerator, it just got the worst review ever. It was really funny. And I was like, yeah, I could see why he would say that. And then, oh, yeah, okay. Uh, it was exactly that was hated. It was not, it wasn't cool enough for this person, but or not good enough. Um, but I think it was just exactly right for how I felt about albums in general, what I thought the important part is of making an album. And it was more, I guess, a personal artistic expression than like something that I thought, okay, I'm doing this because then I'm going to set myself more up in this music direction, or this or that. Or it was more like, kind of like more pointless, more
mhm.
artistic.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that someone was able to write apparently, I mean, I didn't read the review, but if someone were to write a review that's so negative, what that communicates to me is that you poured your honest self into the music. Because if somebody's going to have a strong reaction to it either way, that means there's a certain amount of care and emotion brought into it, no matter what. Because I mean, no one can control what anybody's going to think of their art once it's out there. All they can control is what they put into it. And in the terms of like the balance and the duality of the world, if there's a strong amount of emotion feeling put into any form of art, it has the potential to cause a similar reaction, whether that's positive or negative. And so, I mean, that's what I would take away from any negative review.
Yes, very good point. Yeah.
um, you mentioned that you were were you pregnant and or new mother basically throughout the whole process of the album, or was there stuff that happened maybe
Actually, yes, I
before?
was pregnant throughout the whole, maybe some bits I had prepared before I went into the studio uh to like really record and set things down in Geneva with Lad, like my mastering and sound engineer that I was working with. Um because some things I had done on my machines before and just brought with me, but then most things we did in the studio. And I was pregnant, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Things that I had prepared was just before. And yes, I was pregnant throughout. And then at the finishing thing, I had my son was like 3 months old.
How do you think the idea of knowing you're about to become a mother influenced the music that you made during that time?
For sure, a lot, especially one track. I
Mm-hmm.
remember the one track is definitely completely influenced by my son.
Uh, which track was that?
I think it was the feel. No, my God. Let me check. I have no idea. I don't know the names. So bad. Oh my God. Uh, this is very typical. Okay. Uh, uh, huh. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't feel. Strange. No, it was feel. Feel.
Feel.
Feel. Yes.
Um, do you think it brought us the thought of being a mother? Do you think it brought a sense of kind of like excitement, maybe a sense of fear? Even what sort of energy do you think that brought into the music?
Uh, a more calm, I would
Calm.
say. Yeah,
That's interesting.
more sense of calm. Sorry, I'm just looking for a tissue quickly. Uh, More sense of calm. Yeah. Um, Calm and femininity. I don't know if you can say that femininity sounds stupid when you say it, but like more, I think it was more personal, more about me. This is also why I call it Donna, because
Mhm.
Donna, from also Donna is a beautiful name and it's also named Donna Salmon, obviously. Not that I was comparing, but I just thought Donna also means woman in Italian. And this is why I thought it was just a good, and Donna in German, but written differently means thunder. But obviously the album is not thunder, but having a baby is kind of like a thunder in your life.
Oh
And
yeah.
it was just it was like a mix of all these things that I thought Donna, and I just wanted to have something that meant one, just was one word. And yeah, I think yeah, it's like this femininity or this like this yeah, being a woman was what it brought, was the other element, calm and femininity.
Mhm. I definitely feel the calm aspect because it's definitely the album's not like high flying club techno tracks, much more soulful and musical, lyrical in that sense. I can't fully relate to the femininity aspect, obviously, but just on the basics not the right word, but on the concrete fundamental aspects, like you said, the name being the name of woman, the cover art itself, it's I definitely see that like from the consumer side of just being a woman, being a mother, being a woman in dance music, that kind of thing. It seems very clear that that was an intention that was brought into it for sure.
Yes.
Um, since we're kind of on the topic, one interview I read, you said that the proudest accomplishment in your career was being a DJ mom. And I'm just curious, have you introduced your son to any kind of
No.
DJing or music or anything like that yet? No, no.
No. I hope he's gonna do something else. I don't
Yeah.
think he's a DJ. No. No, and also like I don't have like now I have a setup in my storage. I never really had a setup in my house. Always only had one turntable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's not very present in where I live or where we live, you know. So he doesn't get confronted with it so much. He sometimes sees me and sometimes sees me maybe on an Instagram video or something.
Mm-hmm.
Knows that's what I do, but he's not really asked any questions yet. I mean, he's 7, you know,
Yeah.
so probably doesn't care. He just knows I go away and then I come back, and he's like obviously not happy when I'm going away, and I'm not really happy when I'm going away from him ever. It's always really hard to leave your son. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's I guess yes, this is my proudest accomplishment that I'm actually, yeah. It was also extremely hard, and it's like it's a choice you're making. But obviously for me, I mean, I was pregnant, and I wanted to have my baby, so you know, I didn't have a choice. So I had to go with the flow
Mm-hmm.
and make the best of it. And yeah, but it gets easier when they get older, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Are you playing classical music around the house the way that you started listening to it when you were younger?
I don't really play a lot of music in the house, which
Mm.
is I don't listen to a lot of music in the house because we're living with my mother, together with my mother. Yes, I do sometimes. It's more like I listen to at night by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So because then I also can listen to it in peace and quiet. So I'm really listening to it. But we use our car a lot, or I have to drive my son to school and back. And I always like to, even like if I have to listen to a track that I made or album or whatever, I like to listen to them in the car. It's like a thing that I have. I like to listen to music in the car. And now, because in Ibiza, I was also driving quite a bit. But now I just drive for an hour sometimes to somewhere in nature where I can take a nice walk, and I have a CD player in my car, so I listen to CDs in the car. So that's really cool. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of producers say that the car test is the final
Yeah.
test because that's where most of the people are going to be listening to it anyway, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
To kind of keep things in the theme of like the next generation, just, you know, younger artists. I'm curious, like, as someone who has a lot of experience in the scene, like, what do you think of this next upcoming generation of dance music artists, you know, the younger artists?
It's like difficult to know because like we just had a break of 2 years, no?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Probably are new people that I don't know because, or maybe I've seen something online, and well, it's a very, you know, there is this and I didn't realize it how much there's this like official DJ or music world
Mm-hmm.
that everyone looks to, or that counts as the one that measures how famous you are, how much money you get, and all of that, how popular you are on Instagram. And then there's like the real music or DJ world where, you know, there's scenes, clubs, and who gets to play there, and how are they doing in these clubs, who is a good DJ or not. That's again a completely different story. And sometimes it goes hand in hand, but sometimes it's just the worlds apart. And it's just really hard to, you know, when you're like, oh yeah, she's good, he's good, great. But when do I hear people DJ in a club? I mean, maybe when I was like partying, going out a lot more, yeah, then I could obviously, or when I'm there and I hear someone play before me. And now actually I like to like hang out longer because, you know, I haven't, you know, I'm more, I don't have so many gigs. So I'm more rested. I'm not stressed. I don't have to get from one to the next. Maybe sometimes I have 2 gigs, but most of the time it's like one, you know, where like things just got canceled again. You know, I have a completely different attitude. I can have it now because, you know, I'm not stressed out going from one gig to the next. But I don't really get a chance to listen to people in a club, you know. So you're listening to a podcast or a mix, which can be super, super interesting and really good. So you're like, oh, wow, he picked really cool music. That's really good. But that doesn't mean this is what they're like on the dance floor. I don't know. It's hard to really know, especially now because we've not really been anywhere and nothing's been running really. But throughout the years, or like throughout the last, let's say 10 years, I was really happy that there were like more and more women that were playing really well, or I really enjoyed. So where, you know, you could really not go like, okay, it's so hard for women, blah, blah, blah. Because it was always, it's so hard for women, blah, blah, blah. And I think you really cannot say anymore, it's so hard for women, blah, 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 to have to be able to become a DJ. I think it's a lot better. And that was nice.
Yeah, I mean, I was recently read an article and it talked about artists like Amelie Lenz and Charlotte DeWitt, who are young women who are extremely talented. And it brought up the idea, it's like, you know, they're even just the way they present themselves, they're in these like baggy clothes. It's not about their appearance. It's, you know, you know, they're very much bring their legitimate talent to the table, and nobody can deny that.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. And they both look very natural, and yeah, and they both seem very lovely. Yeah.
You brought up this idea of like the two worlds of kind of dance music, like how much money you make and stuff, and then like basically like the facade, and then the music itself. Was dance music culture always like that, or did those two worlds kind of split from one another at a certain point?
I don't really know, because obviously in the 90s I wasn't around. I was only around from the late 90s, living or starting to DJ. So I don't really know what it was like. But I'm sure that like the business, I mean, back then the DJs could make a lot of money with music, you know, like people like David Morales had big hits that were like played on the radio all around the world, which like in the last 15 years, Avicii had, like, you know, that was commercial music, commercial dance music was EDM and not house music. So that has changed completely. And the thing is, what was interesting back then, that like the commercial music or the commercial house music was still house music, you know. EDM, you cannot play EDM in a club, you know. You cannot play an Avicii track at Berghain, but you can play a David Morales hit at Berghain, you know. So I guess that's something that is the more general, you know, when DJ Mag does like the
top 100,
you know, that's something that is obviously a completely different world to the world that I grew up as a DJ in Berlin. So
Mm-hmm.
this is also why that all of that never meant anything to me, because the people I admired or what I thought was interesting about DJing was I didn't even know that DJ Mag existed until like into my career, because I would never read a magazine about DJs, because I would rather listen to them than read about them.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to know is what DJs eat and what they who they date, and or maybe, yes, of course, their influences. It's interesting to know these things, and yeah, how they started, obviously, especially if it's people like that started going up in the late 80s, then obviously that's extremely interesting when you can listen to people's stories from Paradise Garage and what it was like, or when you listen to Longany, like what was it like at Hacienda, or what was it like Carl Cox, Darlington Idea at Twilo, what was
Mm-hmm.
it like Junior Vasquez at Sound Factory? Yeah, obviously these things I find extremely interesting. But yeah,
Cool.
there's not so many DJs that had like such interesting periods. And there's New York, there's Ibiza, there's Frankfurt, there's Berlin, there's Amsterdam. Obviously, there's Italy, there's the Riccione and Rimini, there's uh, also Paris. They're the places where music was big, or they had certain famous Manchester clubs, and these people that played there or got the chance to be there or live the party life there, obviously their stories are extremely interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely enjoyed a lot of your stories that you told during this interview. So I appreciate that. Just have one last quick question, which is, we got the holidays coming up and soon we'll be in a new year. So what do you have planned for what's coming next?
So what, I changed agents, like not my US agent, but my rest of the world agent. And we just had a business trip that we had to do together to Helsinki. And it was just really, so I'm working with a woman again, she's a female agent, which I did at the beginning. And not that it's better to work with a woman,
Yeah.
but it's just that also who she is and the experience she has. And she's been in dance music even longer than I have. And we were discussing all these things and talking about, what it all means to us, and why are we still doing this, and why do we want to do it, and what do we want to change, and why is it good to be working together, etc. And I think that was really, especially because it was like now beginning of December last month of this year, it was really, okay, we're going to do this again.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be hard because there's less work, it's like we probably have to build the scene from scratch in certain areas. I hope many clubs can survive. I mean, again, now lockdowns, and it's extremely difficult for them. So many people have lost their jobs. I mean, we all had a really hard time with the whole situation. And but now it's like, okay, we're doing this again. We've had all these beautiful, really extraordinary experiences. And what we know is really helpful, because we know what's good about it and what's bad. Some people don't know that because they haven't experienced it, and I think it's our responsibility as veterans, if you want to call us veterans, to set a certain tone and to not give up, and to still be there, and maybe be there in a very in a more mature or more pronounced fashion, and to go like, okay, this year we've still given ourselves like, okay, like, because things are going to get canceled and it's not really here there yet, let's test. And I was like, also like, yeah, you know what, I have my son, he just started school. I'm not in the right frame of mind of career.
Yeah.
I'm happy to play gigs that are like great for making certain contacts, be with certain people, also to make money, of course, because I need to make money as well. Again, after like being on a holiday for more than a year. But yeah, holiday, if people are just listening to this, it was not meant seriously. I was just, it was meant sarcastically. Yeah, it's just that we really thought, okay, 2022, even if it's going to be rough and even if it's going to be a challenge again, we're just going to really go for it and really make it what we say we can make it, be really more pronounced, and really go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see what you're saying about the kind of a responsibility as a veteran, because it's kind of like you're saying about the whole two worlds thing. You've seen the power that this culture has, the power that it has to unite people, the power it has to just bring joy. And so this is a time when people need
Absolutely,
it the
yeah.
most. This is the time when people need it the most. And even though there's certainly some hurdles in making that happen, with the government closing clubs before they close anything else, it's like you were saying before about your career. It's like, if you're going to be a DJ, you have to do the absolute best that you can. And so now is the time when the people need the artists of all genres to do the best that they can. And I think that'll really just be a telling thing about who really wants to be an artist, whether they're really in it to deliver those experiences or whether they're in it for the paycheck, whether they're in it for the traveling or whatever, and it doesn't have to be black and white, like perform for free kind of thing.
No, that is obviously, it's always a mix of things. There's
Yeah.
do for money and gigs you do because for the love of it, etc. I mean, that's part of a professional life, but it's extremely beautiful what you said, because that's exactly it. It's like, it's kind of like a new beginning for me.
Mm-hmm.
And again, because like back then where I was getting into it easy, I never had this, I have to conquer the world, be the best DJ attitude. So now it's like, okay, what do I have to give, And I guess when I also said the pronounced thing, what do I give? It's like, it's more that the attitude of giving has to be extremely apparent for me, like when you're there to connect with people, like funnily enough, all the gigs I had this year, they were really amazing and really, I was really connecting with the people, hanging out forever, really talking to everyone. And it was just so, I could just see how much joy I can bring, and how much joy the music brings and connects the people. There was this couple in Napoli they were so sweet. They were like dancing next to me. They were the promoters' friends, and they hadn't come out in a really long time. I guess they're also parents, but they were like out all the time. They were like really ravers in Italy, and know the music well. And they were really like dancing and going for it. And then at the end, she said, "Oh, thank you. I just really feel like making love to my husband. That's amazing."